I had the pleasure of knowing Mr. Anton Yelchin. So this episode is in honor of him, 10 years after his passing in 2016, when he was just 27 years old. Anton is perhaps best known as Pavel Chekhov in the J.J. Abrams rebooted Star Trek movies. That's what he's going to be best known to most people, I think. He first hit most people's radar as the main teen actor in 2001's Hearts in Atlantis opposite Anthony Hopkins. That's the one that was based loosely on a Stephen King novella. And then roles followed for him in movies like Alpha Dog, Charlie Bartlett, and Terminator Salvation. He was the new John Connor in that one, as did his role in Star Trek. But in his 20s, he found himself veering towards independent cinema and wanting to work with the greats of previous eras, such as Paul Schrader and Nick Cage in Dying of the Light, Joe Dante in Burying the Ex, and Vidhu Vinod Chopra in Broken Horses. Then also up-and-coming indie talents like Jeremy Saulnier in Green Room. For those who haven't seen Green Room, that's an amazing one. He's opposite Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart's a white supremacist, and Anton leads a band that has to fight their way out of a bar that the white supremacists have taken over after they play a gig there. So everyone go check out that one. Also, Michael Almerida in the two movies Cymbeline and Experimenter, in that order. And then Gabe Klinger in the film we're going to talk about today, Porto. Now, I know Anton because I got to be part of a short film that he was in by another incredible talent. The short film was Kiss Kiss Finger Bang by Gillian Wallace Horvat, one of the funniest writer-directors I know, still to this day, one of the funniest writer-directors I know. And during this time, when he met Gillian, Anton would often frequent the art house cinemas of LA, the New Beverly, the Egyptian, etc. He would often befriend cinephiles. He was just very open, very friendly, and also those aforementioned up-and-coming indie talents. This was how he met Gillian, and through her, myself as well. So my kitty at the time, Kumite, she got to co-star in Gillian's short film opposite Anton Yelchin. And Kumite was an amazing screen cat. She had to be in the short film. She had to be in this vet's office while the vet, played by the legendary Buck Henry, also R.I.P. in this episode, Buck would give her a checkup. And she just sat there in her little Buddha cat pose. Everyone knows that one, like a chicken warming her eggs kind of a thing. And the crew even broke for a food break. This was an overnight shoot, so I don't know what to call this break. Certainly not lunch, but they broke for whatever the wee small hour of the morning version of lunch is. And they did that for a full 45 minutes. And Kumite just sat there in her Buddha pose on the vet table and never moved. The crew came back and new takes were shot, and Kitty never budged an inch the entire process through. I remember the crew being like, holy shit, we can just like literally pick up. And the cat's still there. No one had to pick her back up. I didn't have to put her back in her carrier. I went over and petted her and like made soothing sounds and all that fun stuff. But once she was in place, she just like hunkered down and was kind of, I'm sure she was like not happy, but she was happy enough. She wasn't looking to like slink away. She wasn't looking to run. So in that sense, she is a perfect movie cat. Now, don't ask her to actually do anything. She's probably the worst movie cat in the world if something active is called for. But anywho, Anton starred in that short, Kiss Kiss Finger Bang, opposite another actress, Caitlin Scheel, also a great indie talent. Go check out She Dies Tomorrow from 2020 to see her in action, or this short, Kiss Kiss Finger Bang, you can find online. I believe it is still a Vimeo short of the week, and you can find that online. And this short did go on to win the Jury Award at South by Southwest that year. And afterwards, I had a script by another up-and-coming indie talent, Calvin Reeder. He directed the films The Oregonian and The Rambler, starring Dermot Mulroney. So he had this incredible yet batshit script, which is basically the only kind of script that Calvin ever had. But he had this incredible yet batshit script that would have been a perfect repartnering between Anton and Nick Cage, something they both wanted to do since Schrader's Dying of the Light, the one I mentioned before. The producers took that from Schrader and recut it against his will. And when the movie was released, both the director and both stars, Anton and Nick, just disowned the movie, like when it was being released. So this was not even well after the fact. This was like they were very vocal about how they were not supportive of the movie at the time. So it was kind of a shit show in that way, but they loved working together, both with Schrader and with each other. So they were very much looking to do it again. Now, I can still picture what an incredible film that would have been. And there's no guarantee, of course, that Anton would have done it or Cage, but Anton had agreed to read it. Unfortunately, in June 2016, for those of you who do not know the story, Anton drove his Jeep Grand Cherokee up into his steep inclined driveway of his home. When he exited, he walked down the driveway to check the mail at his home's, like the little pilloried gate that kind of was the entrance to his driveway. And the Jeep rolled back down the incline, ultimately striking Anton and pinning him against one of the stone pillars. He was found the next day after he failed to show up for a rehearsal. Police identified the cause as, quote, blunt traumatic asphyxia, unquote. Anton was, again, just 27. There was a defect with his car. The model had experienced a high number of quote-unquote rollaway incidents due to a gear shift design that made it difficult for the operator to know if the car was in park or still in gear. The FCA had already recalled all the unsold models in April of that year. But the software patch to repair the owned and operated vehicles did not arrive to the dealers until the very week of Anton's death. And the notice for him to get the patch repair arrived in the same mailbox right where he passed very shortly, I believe roughly 1 week after the fact. Following the incident, the FCA accelerated the recall campaign and took steps to get the affected Jeeps repaired more quickly than originally planned, you think. It's sad that it takes a famous person passing for something like that to happen, because this, of course, was the incidents were frequent. But Porto, the movie that we're here to discuss today and pair some honorary wines with, all honorary to Anton, is one of the many films released posthumously. I'd never seen it. I'd never seen any of the movies that had been released. To this day, Porto is now the first. But when you've known someone and then they start releasing the films after they're gone, that is not something that's easy to do. So I couldn't quite bring myself to go watch those movies at the time, all within kind of a year and a half of his passing. But now I thought, these are a lot of films that I really am curious about, and I really do want to see. And Porto, it just got a brand new 4K release from Kino Lorber just the last month, so I figured now was a good time to give it a whirl. Remember the man that I used to briefly know, and since I just went to the city of Porto in Portugal for the first time myself last month, and I currently sell Portuguese wines here in LA, and this is a podcast where we pair wine with movies, it seemed that this was the one that was most fitting of all the posthumously released Anton films to pull the trigger on. So, folks, strap in, raise a glass to Mr. Anton Yelchin, and get ready to talk some wine and Porto.
Are you not entertained?
Yes, sir! We'll have a real good time!
He's Dave, and I'm Dallas, and this is Vintertainment. We have opinions on just about everything. Sometimes those opinions are spot on. Sometimes they go down easier with a glass of wine. This is Vintertainment, the wine and entertainment pairing podcast.
All right, change of tone. Welcome, everybody, to Vintertainment. This is, of course, the podcast where we pair wine with entertainment. It is as simple as that. And before we get to the movie, it is, of course, time for our wine trivia question of the week. So, Dallas, Porto. It's a city where all port is vinified and aged, though the grapes can come from throughout the larger Douro area where the city of Porto is placed, but it has to be aged in the city of Porto. Now, port was accidentally invented by the British when they poured spirits into Douro wines to help them survive the journey to England, mostly because the seas in that exact part where they have to sail between Porto and England are so hot that they needed something to help preserve them. So the high alcohol content stopped fermentation in the still developing wines, and which kills the yeast, that high alcohol, and left behind a sugary, sweet, yet still boozy fortified dessert wine that the Brits then loved. But why were the Brits so keen to trade with Portugal in the first place, when the wines required fortification to survive such a trip? Was it A, they were angling for new lands to establish their own wine brands, which they would eventually do, as all the major port houses are today owned by the British and or other Europeans?
Mm-hmm.
B, they fucking hated the Spanish, so minimized trading with them.
Yeah.
C, they fucking hated the Italians, so same. Or D, they fucking hated the French, and so same.
Let's see. So, yes, they would go on to dominate the wine brand space here with the fortified wines, I suppose. So that is technically true. They didn't love the Spaniards, but I don't know if they hated them that much.
And this is at the time.
Of course, not today. The Italians, the Italians at that point, I suppose, aren't really an issue.
Everybody hated the Italians.
True. But they did have continuing issues with the French, I think particularly with embargoes and taxes. So it's either for me A or D, and I'm going to flip the coin in my head and go D because they fucking hated the French.
Correct. Woo! Our non-wine expert got a wine trivia question right. I always love it when that happens, honestly. So yes, they had trade. I think most history books or articles written about it usually refer to it as something like trade tensions were high between France and England at the time. And so they were looking elsewhere for their wine, and Portugal just happened to have a lot of very good and very pretty cheap too. So they could get it. They had good relations with the Portuguese, but shipping it to England was a pain in the butt because of the high temperatures in those seas. Yeah. And so they had to come up with something, because they could go to Porto and drink the wines and be like, these are amazing. Go to the Douro and be like, we love these. We want to get them home. And they'd be spoiled every single time. They'd be cooked by the time they got them home. And then they tried the fortification method, and they discovered something amazing. A completely dessert wine was not what they were aiming for. They were just trying to preserve the dry wine, but instead they got a fortified dessert wine. And to this day, most of the big port houses, guys, and when you ever see, Graham's, that is not a Portuguese name, right? So you see like Graham's and Dow and Taylor Fladgate. Right. Yeah. And so these are all British-owned port houses. I think some of them, like Kopka, I'm not sure what or Kopke, I'm not even sure how you pronounce that one. And Newport, or however you, that one is Scandinavian of some kind and is owned by the Dutch, I believe. Yeah. But in any event, that has been our wine trivia question of the week.
Indeed.
Let's get to our movie.
Let's do it. Here's your log line for Porto. Porto, taking place in a dreamy, remembered version of the gorgeous Portuguese city, stars Anton Yelchin as Jake, an American abroad who crosses paths with Matee, played by Lucy Lucas, a beautiful French woman, also somewhat stranded and vulnerable to coincidence and romantic pull. A relationship flares up, but it's one complicated by time itself. The film is shot on multiple formats, Super 8, 16mm, and 35mm, each one used to embody a span of time in the life of the couple before, during, and after their one-day rendezvous and ardor. And here is a brief history of how the film came to be and its key players. Brazilian-born American Gabe Klinger had made a name for himself as a film critic for CinemaScope and Sight and Sound, and as a programmer for such venues as the Museum of Modern Art and the Rotterdam International Film Festival. But in 2013, Klinger moved behind the camera for the first time to helm the documentary Double Play, a two-for dialogue with an exploration of the work of two distinctively different yet unexpectedly compatible American filmmakers, Richard Linklater and James Benning. This move to documenting and combining favorite filmmakers seemed like a natural extension of Klinger's advocacy for the medium. Yet rather than remaining in the documentary space for his follow-up, Klinger went overseas to Portugal to make the dreamy art house romance that is at once engrossing yet problematic in its sexual politics, but plainly the work of a cinephile, aided and abetted by a cast and crew that were themselves cinephiles. Even though Klinger is a Brazilian and has a natural connection to Porto, Brazil having once been a colony of Portugal, Klinger originally wanted to film the movie in Athens. His documentary had been funded by European entities, and he knew his first narrative feature would fare best with seeking out the same. But this was the same year that the Greek liquidity crisis hit. While they were waiting for things to stabilize, one of the producers, Rodrigo Arias, who lived in Northern Portugal, suggested Porto. After scouting locations there with Wyatt Garfield, the film cinematographer, Klinger became convinced that it was exactly what they were looking for. And then the city of Porto and the Porto Film Commission were incredibly supportive in a way that made it clear it would be the right choice logistically. Klinger told Movie.com, "As you say, it's an intimate place. It has a big city feel without being overwhelming. And aside from Manuel de Oliveira, there weren't many filmmakers who shot in Porto. That novelty was appealing to us. I feel like I have to talk about Oliveira briefly here. He was a key influence, and not just because of the scarcity of films set in Porto. My first connection with the city was through his films, Douro, Fina, Fluvial, oh my goodness. I did not read this name. Hold on. O Pintaro, Cidade, and Porto of my childhood are like great virtual maps of Porto, and so incredibly beautiful. Of course, they ended up influencing the visual design of our film."
And shout out to our Vintertainment episode where we covered Oliveira's feature debut, Anarchy Bobo from 1942, and covered that director's history and the history of Portuguese cinema throughout the 20th century. In doing so, make sure to give that a listen, because especially if you're interested in Portuguese cinema, I got to tell you, everything we just said right there, that's about where this movie's real connection and
100%.
having anything to do with Portugal ends.
100%.
Unfortunately, we'll talk more about that in just a minute. But anyways, Dallas, keep going.
Although it does feel like they use one of the same streets. But anyway, Klinger decided to film Porto in 3 different film gauges, a visual canvas that would expand as the temporal space of the film narrowed. Super 8 would cover the most time, not screen time, but story time, and 35mm would cover the least amount of story time, but the most screen time. Director Klinger said, quote, "It's difficult to sustain an immersive sense of time in Super 8 because it only gives you impressions. The frame is small, there's not much depth, and you can only shoot for 3 minutes. With 35mm, you have a huge frame, a lot of detail, and can shoot for typically around 10 minutes, because there aren't as many limitations. 35mm also allows you to conceptualize time in a more objective way. Jake and Mati are characters stuck in time. They are stuck in one night, even though they are no longer living that one night. They are perhaps thinking about it or dreaming about it. There's something James Binning says that really resonates with me. All of time is just memory. That's really what the film is about, and contrasting these different formats, exploring what they could reveal to the audience about how we live time through memory and dream, I could begin to say something really poignant about these 2 characters."
And Klinger went on to say, quote, "Attraction is a mystery to me. I always balk when people look at couples and say things like, oh, they're perfect for each other, or pejoratively or complimentarily, quote, they deserve each other, unquote. How do you know? You may be perfect for someone, but your life isn't perfect. Or you may be perfect for your partner, but for whatever reason, you don't want to be with your perfect person. One thing I will say is that loneliness is the great unifier, as paradoxical as that sounds. When you're an outsider in any environment, your feelings of loneliness are exacerbated and you seek connection. And sometimes those connections are strange, mysterious. I didn't want to give Jake and Maddie too much psychology. It's funny, I believe in psychology in my own life, but I don't really believe in it in cinema. Larry Gross, my co-writer, was pro backstory, and I was sort of con, and we found a middle ground. A lot of backstory didn't end up in the film, unquote. And by the way, Larry Gross, we didn't mention him, but I believe he's a writer. He was an old Walter Hill writer. He did like 48 Hours back in the day, if everyone remembers that one. And a couple other Walter Hill films, maybe The Warriors, I forget. But anyway, he's kind of old school. So it is fascinating that he's a co-writer on this with Gabe. In any event, Porto premiered at the San Sebastian International Film Festival on September 19, 2016. On March 10th, 2017, Kino Lorber acquired distribution rights to the film, and the film was released to the public on November 17, 2017 by Kino, 11/17/17 by Kino Lorber. It has a rating of 52% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 31 reviews and 48 on Metacritic based on 11. So not that many people have actually even covered this film. Now, I will say when you're searching for this film, because it hit festivals in 2016, some places list this as a 2016 movie and other places list it as a 2017 movie. You might have to F around with that date to find this wherever you are, depending on what they have it listed as. Because there is yet another movie called Porto from like 2019 or 2021, or I can't even remember, that popped up on my radar. And yeah, that's not the right one. It's the one from either 2016 or 2017. Now, Elena Lazic, writing for Seventh Row, this is one of the critics, said, quote, Porto hints at a promising deconstruction of what it is to fall in love at first sight, representing it as a mutually fulfilling intersection of different, ultimately selfish expectations and fantasies. Unfortunately, despite brief interruptions, we invariably return to align with Jake's perspective. Maddie's terrible problem, we are told, is her promiscuity. She loves sex and being desirable. She uses her undeniable charms to get what she desires. As if this queasy perspective on sexually confident women weren't bad enough, the film also has the hypocrisy to clear itself of all objections by having Maddie explicitly criticize herself. Like Natalie Portman's Sam in Garden State, Maddie repeatedly self-identifies as, quote-unquote, a bit crazy. It goes without saying that Maddie's shortcomings are given much more screen time than Jake's. The film rarely objects to his possessive and disrespectful behavior. Only by a stretch of the imagination can one imagine the sequences of the man, now old, living alone, still in Porto, and still dreaming of Maddie as a criticism of him. And I think that's a perfect place to kick off our own thoughts on this film.
Agreed.
Because the critics did kind of exorize this.
Yeah.
They were not kind. And I'm going to say, before we get started, the one thing I will say up front is I really enjoyed watching this.
100%.
But,
absolutely. Yes,
it was an enjoyable watch. There's something here that I'm like, this is well made, and there's a vibe element to it where I'm like, I'm engrossed. This is taken me along for the ride. I've actually watched it twice because I had to go back. We're going to talk about the time stuff going on here.
Oh, yeah.
Do it Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, but there's a time thing that the film plays with that I had to go back to be like, do some things work or do they not? Because I wasn't 100% sure the first time. And the second time, they work a little bit better than I feared, but they still don't work. And so we gotta talk about that a little bit. Then, yes, there are some troubling, the difference between how it handles the woman versus the man is like, we're going to get back to the quote that Gabe said earlier, where he's like, I don't believe in psychology. Yeah. And I'm like, oh no. But anyway, we'll get to that in just a moment. But folks, this is the part of the podcast where we start breaking the film down into 3 acts. We give a brief synopsis of each act and then discuss our thoughts on the film and our wine pairing thoughts. What were we thinking was going to go with this film in Act 1 versus how that evolves in Act 2, and then ultimately in Act 3, how that solidifies and what we decided was ultimately the best pairing. So on that note, Dallas, kick us off. Act 1. Let's get going.
All right, good people. So this is Jake's viewpoint starts us off here. We open in Porto, the harbor city in northern Portugal. We see Jake, Anton Yelchin, and Mati, Lucy Lucas, staring happily into each other's eyes. Next, A flashback, perhaps, an earlier scene, where Jake is alone in Cafe Suta and is looking like death warmed over as he waits in the cafe with just his dog. His loneliness and emptiness are palpable, all the things, and searing. On a blank screen, we see Act 1, Jake. Next, we see Jake walk by a Cafe Suta, where he appears to want to recapture better times. He briefly flashes back to the better times, a conversation with Matee. She is beautiful, to say the least. He is enamored. She is a 32-year-old classic student from Paris, and he is a plain-spoken, intense 26-year-old guy who is used to taking any work he can get, barely getting by. He doesn't take care of himself much or have any meaningful social life. It's not a pretty picture that's painted for this guy, Jake, in the beginning. We learn that Matee came to Porto with her professor. The two of them hit it off and started a relationship, but he was interested in starting a family, and Matee thought that her freedom was more important to her. Jake responds with a bizarre intensity. That cannot be understated. It
No,
is
it cannot.
a bizarre intensity, which is the reason I liked this film. We'll get back to that. But
Okay.
it's a beautiful little like moment that is so understated and so intense in this first act that's what hooked me about the show. Anyway, Jake responds with a bizarre intensity and says, quote, I understand completely.
And can I just say, he says, I understand.
Oh, it's so good.
I understand completely.
It's so good.
Whoa. I mean, you're just like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. In less adept hands, it would have come off as hokey and all this stuff, but it was perfect. The notes were perfect.
No, it's mesmerizing. You're starting to be like, what is going on with this guy and this moment and these two? Anyway, keep going.
For sure. The connection between them appears to be strong. We briefly see them later at night in bed together. The next day, Jake wakes up from the bed on the floor and notices a note telling him to help himself to any food, and that she really means it. Drawn with a smiley face, of course, because sex will do that. We later see him unpacking. No emojis.
Oh, actually, there probably were emojis back then.
Oh, yeah,
I lie.
Yeah, there are probably emojis back then, right? We later see him unpacking moving boxes and setting up Matee's furniture. Matee returns, not expecting to see Jake still there, and she has her professor boyfriend in tow. After some awkwardness, the professor prepares a tapas dinner for them all. He asks how the two know one another, but no response is given. He next asks what Jake does. Matee volunteers that Jake works at the dig site where Matee's class visited. Awkward conversation proceeds, and this scene wraps up. By the way, awkward conversation, also an understatement. Next, we see Jake repeatedly trying to call Matee as he waits outside her apartment with his poor dog. Finally, he sees her exit from her apartment and confronts her desperately. She invites him back inside, but Matee is plainly upset, toiling over a decision perhaps, and doesn't know what to do with Jake. For his part, Jake acts entirely oblivious to Matee's cues, pushing for the intimacy of the previous night that no longer exist. Another sad, just uncomfortable moment. My God. Matee leaves and says she'll call Jake when she's less busy. Jake tries to forcibly kiss her multiple times and then slaps her when she resists. Did you guys hear that part? Slaps her in the middle of the street when she resists, saying, I don't understand. You're like a different person. Now we see Jake is detained in a police office, but is getting released. The officer says Jake should not go back to see Matee. This ends the act from Jake's viewpoint. All right, Dave, get into it. Tell me what the hell you're thinking about Act 1. What did it do for you?
So, first off, I will say, listeners, I'm probably always going to say Matee's name, Maddie, just because that's how Jake says it the whole time. He's always like, Maddie, and it's Mati. Maybe in French that is properly Matee, and she is, of course, supposed to be French. He is supposed to be American. And so, couple of things. First off, this movie is I quickly realized, I'd been to Porto just a little over a month ago. And so I recognized a lot of the places that they were walking, and the harbor especially. I was like, oh, yeah, I know. I spent half a day. I spent like an evening in Porto, and I could recognize some of the places. And I was like, it's not that big of a city, I think, the way we think of cities a lot of the times. Like Portugal as a country is not that big. I was not aware of this, but like we basically drove in 7 days, like top to bottom, all across the entire country. And I was
not
like,
a large place.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, not as big as you think it might be. And I quickly realized, though, like, yes, it takes place in Porto. Now, I didn't realize this movie was meant to take place in Athens originally, which might make a little more sense. We learn that Jake is working at this like archaeological dig site, which probably, I mean, not that Porto doesn't have a lot of history, but you can see how that matches something like Athens a bit better. Like, why Portugal? Like, what is the archaeological dig site? What are you doing there? Right. And then she's a classics, but she's at this archaeological dig site at some point. And we're following a French woman and an American man in Portugal having an affair that's just about them. And it's only her professor that is a Portuguese man that does kind of interject at one point and steps in. But man, this movie has nothing to do with Porto or Portugal. Like, it covers nothing about the culture, nothing about the area. No. The city itself is more of I think one of the reviews, or maybe in our write-up, we mentioned that it's kind of this dreamlike version of the city, especially because the film, even when we're following our two main leads, it plays with time. In this first act alone, we get like the before, the during, and the after, like bits and pieces of all three just kind of intermixed with each other. And so it's really hard to get a handle on what the exact order of these things were. And it does not tell you when you're jumping to the future or when you're suddenly in the past.
Good luck when you dive in, guys.
Right. You'll just go from like they're talking in the street and yelling, and then they're in their cafe having a nice conversation, and you're like, oh wait, this is before. This is before the yelling in the street. Okay. And who knows how much before. It doesn't really hold your hand in that way. But it is a dreamlike version of the city that does not spend a lot of time capturing any sort of essence of the city. So I will say, it's not really about Porto. It's not really about Portugal. That said, of course, going into this movie, I'm like, it's a movie called Porto, and I'm the Portuguese wine guy, and I gotta pair this with the Portuguese wine. And the first act didn't entirely dissuade me from that. I was still kind of thinking in that vein. But this first act, there is something haunting about the opening scenes. The movie actually opens with this, like them staring lovingly into their eyes. That is actually the first shot. And then immediately we go to the haunting stuff where it's like everything is falling apart and Jake is crestfallen and can't get over it. But at the same time, there's an intensity to Jake, as we've already mentioned. And that intensity, it's so... I will say I'm not sure I entirely agreed with his performance in this, like what he decided to do with this character and how he decided to relate it. Maybe he was a little limited by the script with what he had to say, and he's like, this is the only way it's going to make sense in my head, is to make him this just extremely passionate, like intense individual that can't see past, this one thing. But it is so intense at times that like Lucy Lucas is very... it's funny that she's the one who admits to being a little bit crazy, because by all standards, she is the most normal of the two by such a long shot. No question, as a human being, she's going to have her flaws and all that fun stuff, but not in any like ridiculous kind of way. There are moments where when he's trying to get her, like she invites him back into the apartment, but then he's being very like, what's going on? What's going on? And she like cannot say anything. And there's a little bit of like communication skills. Like, you've got to, my God, give him something. If you need him to go away, if you need this to end, you've got to say something to him. And that is probably the one thing of her character that I was like a little question marky, is just like, she can never, when the moment comes that she really needs to communicate something, anything, doesn't even matter what, but God, communicate something, she's dead silent. And then for the Jake character's part, he's just spouting the most like ridiculous things at all times for a one night stand that you're like, my guy, you're digging yourself deeper, like with everything you say here. Anyways, your take on this opening act. I was mesmerized by it. I was into it, but also pretty immediately, this movie is challenging in terms of like, you don't know where you stand. You don't know exactly where it's going. You're not sure where in time you are at any given moment, except for that, again, once you catch on to the format shift, the Super 8 to the 16 millimeter to the 35 millimeter. That's when you suddenly realize when you're shifting time to any given moment. But if you don't know that, like, the movie is tough. It is very unsettling and keeps you on your toes and uncentered for sure. Anyways, you.
Yeah, I think Yelchin's intensity, Jake's intensity, has to be at the level it is. It is so searing. It is the intensity of desperation. And that's slightly different than, I guess, most intensity, right? Because you can tell he's a guy who is seeking, longing for affection, for love, to be noticed, for a home, for something that he clearly has not had in the last 26 years. He has just been this entity roaming the world, looking for a place to plug in and to plug into him, on all fronts, in terms of family life, in terms of work, in terms of inspiration and calling and love, and so that intensity is sort of unlocked. She removes a brick from the dam. Is essentially what happens, right? She comes along and removes a brick from the fucking damn wall. And that, again, intensity has nowhere to go. It's just going to spew out full blast. And I think it's necessary. And it makes sense as you move further along in the film. Because as we said earlier, he slaps her as he's trying to profess his love and kiss her. Mm-hmm. It is confusion. It is just an amalgamation of everything he's ever wanted. And it seems to be pulling back from him, and it's all discombobulated. So I think every note in Act 1 is perfection. Now, as we go further along, it just starts to disintegrate for me. But I do think Act 1 is perfection.
Right. Well, and to be fair, I definitely had faith in the movie still because there's so much more to go, right? And so you're like, okay, let's see where this goes. This is a lot. I'm not sure where these two characters kind of came from, like where this whole situation, how it all came to be. And that's part of the fun of this movie is like, how did it all come to be? We're going to get a little more into this in Act 2. But in any event, Act 1 wine thoughts. What were you thinking coming into this movie? Like just having watched this first bit.
It's beautiful, right? The setting, the backdrop, what we do see of it is beautiful. It's just a random collection of streets and facades and, cute cafes, and we peek in through windows and curious little boarding houses and, people in the background being quirky and interesting and moody. It was a little moody. It was a little dour, oddly enough. So wine-wise, I was like, okay, this is a little heavy. Maybe I'm looking for something that doesn't necessarily match the energy of the darkness and the heaviness. Maybe I'm looking for something that kind of is a contrast and sort of adds a lighter note, something peppier, brighter. Because at the core of this film is love. It is a wonderful thing. I mean, that sort of central nucleus is a beautiful and tasty and,
I think that was the intent, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But even his desperation at the cornerstone of that, the core of it is love. Now it does turn into intensity. It's attraction, it's lust. It's his version of love. I'm not saying it's absolute love. I'm saying in his mind, clearly there is some form of love that he's been wanting and needing and, pining for.
But there is, it's kind of like the idea of love at first sight, where it's like you meet someone the first day and you're like, I love you.
Yes.
And it's like, I know you believe it and I know you think it.
Yes.
But there is still a heavy, heavy argument to be made whether that is anything like love, especially because you see how he treats her when things aren't just like going swimming and everything, and he's just getting what he wants.
Yeah.
And it's not something where he cares that much about her outside of her giving herself to him.
Right. My point is,
but that is not love. I would argue.
Yes, you're right. In terms of
desire,
like,
that is desire.
That is
obsession.
desire. That is desire and obsession. But desire, obsession, and love can also live in the space with
they can
together. And what I'm saying is, with this character, clearly, that is his idea of love. I'm not talking about our idea of the definition of love or the external, but his idea of love is in there with all the other nonsense somewhere.
I got to push back on that, though. Like, even his idea of love, separating that from what is objectively obsession and desire, there's nothing in this movie that gives us anything. It's just obsession and desire.
Is there an objective definition of love?
Beyond objection and desire, you can say that it can live in harmony with those two things, but then it has to be something that isn't just objectively those two things and then nothing else.
I don't know. I'll push back on that, because if there is no objective definition,
respect for the other person,
love,
actually care for their well-being,
sure.
What they think of you. And Jake throws all of that out the window just when he doesn't get the obsession and desire fulfilled.
Yes, and what I'm saying is, I think he starts with maybe it is a bastardized concept of love, the definition of love, but to the individual from the inside out. That is love to him in that moment. And he clearly doesn't understand it. He clearly doesn't necessarily have a grasp on it. And you're right. Everything you're saying is correct. I'm simply saying from the inside out, as wrong as it may be to the rest of the world or to objectivity, that is a version of love to him.
Okay, but you can't just misuse a word and then it gets to be a version of love. So it's okay. You can say that he's throwing the word love on top of this thing and deciding that's what it means to him, but that does not make it love.
I'm not saying it makes it love. I'm saying the experience for him is the closest that he's probably ever had to the concept of love. I'm not saying it is love.
That we don't know.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
As we learned in our build-up, the director was con to backstory. No backstory.
My point exactly.
And I'm like, oh, great. So we got nothing to go on with these characters, which does become a problem.
It does.
When the whole thing is I will say that is like theoretically in cinema true. You don't necessarily need backstory. You don't necessarily need a lot of psychology. Cinema can be a very audio-visual medium, and it doesn't have to be particularly narrative or character-driven. 100% on all of those things. But when your movie is two people having talking head dialogue and falling, and it's a romance for basically the entire movie, that's all it is. Yeah. It's like, I'm pretty sure psychology and backstory are going to be critical to such a movie. And the fact that it is almost non-existent in this one, almost non-existent, we'll get to Act 2 and 3, is like, it does become a big hindrance to fully being okay with what this movie ultimately does.
I think it does forces you to kind of reckon with that idea of love and infatuation and everything we were just talking about, because as we all know, anyone who's ever been infatuated or even like young love, what you consider love, right, is just an experience. And sometimes the terminology you have is the only terminology you have. And maybe that is love in your mind until you learn otherwise. And so that's essentially that kind of core thing I'm getting at. Not to say it's right or wrong or objective or subjective, but clearly there's some intense feelings there. And in his mind, they're beautiful. And so it's like, okay, all right, maybe something a little lighter, a little peppier, a little brighter. So I'm thinking maybe something fortified, maybe a vibrant white, something with a little fizz, a little agitation.
I know where we're going.
Do you?
Where we're going on this one. Oh yeah.
Okay.
It was actually something I considered as well. And I do think that if I'm correct, we'll see when we get to the reveal at the end. But if I'm correct, I think it's a good pairing.
Okay.
I think that does work because the dreamlike quality to this movie keeps it kind of airy.
Yeah, it does.
Keeps it kind of weirdly ethereal.
Yeah.
Even when the themes are very heavy and what the characters are doing very heavy. I mean, like one night love at first sight, kind of first night love that then all goes wrong and falls apart. all very heavy themes, but the way the movie plays it, everything feels like you're in this bit of a limbo / liminal space where it's not, the weight of the world isn't there. The world is almost like frozen while most of this movie goes on. And one of my complaints about the city of Porto not really being featured is that the city is just sort of like, they say they're in Portugal, but then Portugal's just kind of there.
Okay.
And they're just doing their thing.
Okay, it's so interesting you say that, because one of the things I loved about this film, absolutely fucking loved about this film, and I don't want to say this is rare, but I've rarely seen it done well, where this moment in time is kind of frozen. Everything else around these two kind of just stops and freezes. And so like you said, Porto is not a character in this film, right? It isn't a character in this film like you might find in some films where the title is, the city, the city. And I appreciate that so much, because I personally get tired of seeing cities as fucking characters in film. I'm not there. I can go on a trip and go see the fucking city if I want to see it. Okay? I'm not shading anyone who does it or loves it. It's fantastic, blah, 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 blah. Keep doing it. But I do enjoy the kind of magnifying glass and time stop on this relationship. Yeah. It forces you to analyze this, sort of sit with these characters and their ideas of love and affection and all this stuff that gets, all muddled. Anyway, let's move on. Yeah.
Almost. I did want to talk about my wine thoughts here as well. I mentioned a little bit, but it was just that definitely a Portuguese something. I was thinking I was going to stick to that here, but then like you, ethereal light, although that intensity was kind of there, and the sadness. And so I was like, God, it's really going to depend where this movie goes. Yeah. Whether we're going white and light and having that lift, or whether we're getting something, especially if we're going to talk about the Douro and Porto, and we're going to talk about like big, bold reds. And I'm like, okay, this could be a big, bold red. This could be a light, ethereal white. It's really going to depend where we go after Act 1. Yeah. All right. And on that note, let's get to Act 2, Maddie's viewpoint. Flash forwards show that Maddie and the professor get married, have a baby. The girl grows up in assiduously practicing violin. Maddie demands she, quote unquote, take a break for some peace and quiet, even though the daughter plainly does not want to. The professor then arrives, and Maddie says, "You should have called." The professor brings a gift for Maddie and for their daughter, Madeline, who is visibly thrilled to see her papa, unlike her mama. And Maddie and the professor are plainly not friendly. She is more uncomfortable with the visit than he is. The professor spends the remaining time only with Madeline. This act shifts back in time from the first moment Maddie had seen Jake. She takes notes at the archaeological dig site, and Jake moves wheelbarrows of dirt in the near distance. She later notices him at the train station heading home. Flashes show that Maddie also longs for the night of the cafe. The scene begins to show more of what had transpired as Maddie got to know Jake at the cafe, replaying conversations that we saw in Act 1, but filling in more gaps in between moments. This was a cool thing that when it first started doing it, I was not sure how much I liked it, but as it kept going, I was like, no, this is cool. Yeah. This is nifty. Yeah. It's like we saw snapshots of these moments, and now in Act 2, we start to see that the way it was edited in Act 1, suddenly, there were parts of that conversation missing, and now we're getting the full conversation, and it works really, really well. So this I give the movie a lot of credit for. We learn more about Jake's past and family and what brought him to Portugal. Maddie reveals that she was once sick, was once crazy, as sometimes, quote, "You know what you must do, but you know it is impossible to do," unquote. Jake asks, how did she escape? And she says, "I didn't exactly escape." Yeah. End of Act 2. It's a pretty short Act 2. Act 3 is going to be the next big one. But Act 2, we just basically starts to fill out a little bit more, but we get a little more of Maddie. We get to see her in the future, post all of this, and that she did settle down to marry that professor, but then plainly divorced him, but had a kid with him, but then she couldn't take it. She did need her freedom, but now she has this kid. But all of that said, and this was something I actually had to watch the movie twice to really understand. I did not realize, I actually thought at first we were going into the past when she was with the professor. And I was like, oh, she has a kid.
Right.
And I was like, and maybe the kid was with the professor the night she was with Jake, and that, and then she was moving, but this was like another time when she was living elsewhere in Portugal. So I thought we had gone back in time, and it was only on a second viewing that I realized we had gone forward in time, and this was post everything. And I was like, oh, that changes how I have to, understand everything that's going on here. And now she's interestingly nostalgic for the relationship with Jake, but at the same time, we still don't know how, we see more of her with Jake. And I think this is the interesting thing, is the more we see of her with Jake, and I'm really going to ding the movie for this in Act 3, so I'll only mention it briefly here. But it's like, they're so happy. They're getting along so well, and they're so happy. And yet somehow it all falls apart. Like, somehow she's just like, and I kind of never expected to see you again, type of a thing. And it's like, you probably should tell him that, honey, because and we'll get to Act 3. On that. And as much as I am very critical of how this movie writes Jake, there is that one element of Maddie where it's like, this should all just disappear somehow. And it's like, but it's a human being. It's not going to do that unless you have to very actively tell them to disappear. And then it's only their fault after that. But you got to give something that isn't just silences.
Okay. I have to defend Mati here. I have to defend Mati here. I
mean, don't get me wrong. Jake should have picked up on the silences. Is like, well, she's not happy with me. She doesn't want me here.
I don't think Jake is going to pick up on much.
I know.
Jake, I don't think Jake was going to pick up on much.
Right. So he should be picking up on that. But at the same time, she really does just need to come out and say it fucking once.
Some punctuation at the very least. Also, too, though, that whole act was a little not confusing, but it did require me to pause the film and go, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Hold on. Which, by the way, if a film makes me do that,
yeah,
I'm kind of sold.
It was engrossing. That is one thing I really enjoyed watching this film, for all the criticisms I'm going to heap on it now. It is a watch that I was just like, you're just trying to puzzle this movie out as it goes. Yeah, and you enjoy the characters while you're watching them.
Yeah, I think, by the way, I think anyone who watches this film is probably, you're over the age of 18, likely. You've probably had a deep, intense crush. You probably know those initial confusing feelings of a one-night stand or something really intense where the person is just either saying all the right things, doing all the right things, they look the right way, everything's just sort of stimulated. You add that to his crazy backstory, which we don't get much of, but enough. And so you start to see, okay, this is going to be a really intense little connection. She clearly has an impulse that has nothing to do with his impulse. And they meet in this moment, and she has to go back to her life, her insanity, her crazy. And I think her reference to crazy is just her normal life, is like normal life. Like, I think that's what she's referencing. Anyway, yeah. I think her idea of crazy seems to be living a normal life, like just a normal life.
You mean she can't live a normal life?
Well, yeah.
Like, her thing of crazy is that she rejects that. She is. Yeah. That's not crazy. That's not crazy. I mean, like, a lot of people are like, if it's going to fit into this nice little box of expectation and mainstream, that is appalling to me.
Yeah. And I think when she meets his version of crazy, of insanity, it is, number one, explosive and exactly what the other person wants at that moment in time. But when they have to pull away, as you said, she's just walking back to her world. She's just walking back to her world because this was a little detour for her. She asked her mom,
No, I get that. I get that. And I do think that is exactly what the movie is presenting.
Yeah.
But again, we're going to get to Act 3.
Yeah.
It doesn't hold up with Act 3.
At all.
At all. At all. So I don't disagree with anything you're saying in terms of what the movie is meaning to present her as and explain her character and what she ultimately does. And it works well enough, but as you're going through, and so again, I was like just loving this movie all the way up to this point, and even most of Act 3. But when the credits start to roll, I was like, "Wait, what? That's it?" But we'll get there. We'll get there. Anyways, did anything change then in this Act 3 wine-wise thought for you?
I wanted something a little more celebratory at this point. I'm like, I need
lift you up a bit.
Let me lift me up a little bit. Let me get a little head on here. Let me put some goggles on because so I started thinking maybe something a little more festive. A little more festive. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, for me, this movie I was actually a little bit more on that. It's so easy to watch. It just goes from scene to scene. I mean, even though you're puzzling it out, the movie itself there's a kind of effortlessness the way it goes from scene to scene and jumps through time. Like it doesn't belabor it, right? It's not trying to hold your hand. You're just slipping from scene to scene, from place to place, from time period to time period. And it's filling in these gaps as it chooses to and giving you more context, which is making it make more sense at this point and making it all work a little bit better. And so like at this point, I was like, God, yeah, easy wine. I want like just easy sipping. This is a breeze, maybe something contemplative. Like this is a puzzler, but still something that isn't like, I think the heaviness wasn't there at all. I was just like along for the ride. I was engrossed. And so a wine that can be engrossing has that complexity, but it's also easy. It like does not hit you hard in any way, is just engrossing and balanced, AKA elegant. Okay. You know, and one of those two things. That's where I was right there.
All right. I dig it. Act 3. All right. Matty and Jake. We now see the full evening of their cafe meet cute. Jake arrives at the restaurant by chance. He sits alone at a table, then notices Matty is already seated alone at the opposite side of the cafe, facing toward him. She smiles at him, so he approaches. Matty suggests they go somewhere else. She kisses him as they walk a long way to her car. Matty says she had recently moved to a new apartment and needs help moving boxes. Jake carries a large, heavy box from her trunk to her apartment, a decent walk away.
And having just been to Porto, by the way, there is no parking that is ever close to where you need to go. And all the streets are small, narrow, on steep inclines, and wrap over and under each other, just the way we see on the walk here. So that part, I was like, ooh, the memories, recent memories. And it's very true. You have to walk and it's all uphill. And I can imagine, like, carrying heavy boxes. This is why she was like, oh, I'm not carrying these boxes. Right. My God. Or I'm waiting for the day I luck out and get that parking spot right outside my building. But it's going to take one of those two.
It was also a very cute kind of earn your pleasure moment, because he is happily carrying these boxes and also trying to hide the fact that he is exhausted. He's really desperately trying to hide the fact that he's exhausted while carrying these boxes. Anyway, Matty carries the only lightweight box, and then Jake, pumped, goes back 4 more times to finish getting all of the heavy boxes while Matty relaxes inside the apartment and sets up a bed on the floor. After finishing with all the box trips, Jake says he is almost dead with exhaustion and lies on the bed. But Matty says, I didn't kill you yet, with a suggestive look. Jake finds the energy from some deeply passionate sex, multiple bouts of animalistic and romantic Porto-style sex. I'm coining that. Jake states, how is this happening to us? It doesn't feel like we have a choice, even if we wanted to stop. Also, Another effectively creepy moment.
Yep.
We suddenly cut to the conversation in the cafe, the one we've seen portions of in all 3 acts now. Here we see the end of it, and Jake suggests they walk back to the apartment. On the walk, Jake professes, "I love you." And Matee then says the same to him. They state how they didn't think they could ever lie to each other. At dawn, they finally return to Matee's apartment and sleep after the fairy tale evening. She wakes up earlier than Jake, gets dressed, and leaves the note for Jake. Jake wakes up, reads the note. But then we see that Matee comes back with food. She lays down and gets back into bed. The two lay there and stare into one another's eyes. The exact scene the movie opened with.
And then the credits roll.
And the credits fucking roll.
WTF. So just so I play this out for the listeners, that final scene of them looking into each other's eyes, that was the first moment of the entire movie. And that happened when right after Anton or Jake was lying on the bed. And we saw that in Act 1, where he wakes up and she's gone and he sees the note left behind from her where it's like, help yourself to some food. I really mean it. Smiley face. And then it cuts in Act 1. It then just cut to that evening, like nighttime, when she comes back with the professor and is really surprised to see him there. And that's when she's like, oh no, I thought you'd be gone by now. But now we see that she comes back with food after he sees the note. The note's still there. Help yourself to some food. But then she decides, maybe she didn't think she was going to do this. I have no idea. And then she decides to come back with some food. And then she lays down and stares lovingly into his eyes. Now, this is after the night before where she returns the I love you to him. Right. And when he says, I don't think I could ever lie to you, she says, I don't think I could ever lie to you.
Well, remember, he actually says it was another creepy moment. It was actually my favorite moment in the entire film. The exact verbiage was, he's like, never, ever lie to me. Right. And that was the most chilling. I was like, oh, wow. I know. I know the writer and director doesn't have any room for like backstory, but in that line.
I think also there is something about these lines that Jake is saying. And I think Anton chose to say them like he's just this intense and passionate. Yes. And I do think the writers actually think these are supposed to be loving lines. I don't think they're meant to be a stalkery and like serial killer in the making type. Like never,
he's just an intense lover. Come on,
because he's just like, you'll break my heart. Please never ever lie. Because there's a way to say that where it's like, please never ever lie to me. Yeah. Like kind of a thing. Even then, it's still that thing where it's like the human condition, like white lies and things like that. No relationship goes long without some form of lying by omission. Yeah. Yada. Like,
everybody's lying all the time in a long relationship.
All the time. Yeah. Like there will be elements of lies or some kind of lie that will be a part of that long term. So like to say like never ever lie to me is like, well, this won't last. I'm right there. But then she also is like, yeah, I don't think I could ever lie to you. And I'm like, lady, why are you saying these things? Like, why are you giving it right back to him and then taking him back? Like, she's not worried. She's not afraid. And I kept thinking, especially when she came back with the food and then lies down, I was like, oh, wow, this was unexpected. Yeah. And then I'm like, so that means something happened between now and when she comes back with the professor that changes everything. And I'm like, so where is this going? And then credits fucking roll.
See, I have a theory, which is wrong, because I haven't thought about it too deeply. I think the kid is his. I'm joking.
Oh, wow. Okay. Huh. Except she wouldn't know that day. She can't know that day.
Maybe she doesn't know.
But even if you're right about that theory, my question to you there is like, what does that change?
Nothing. There's no whole lot. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Okay, nothing.
But remember, this film is a whole lot of like, oh, well, what does that do? Oh, it's a whole lot of this film is kind of experimental in that way, where it forces you to kind of decide things for yourself or like fill in the blanks.
But
I'm just saying.
I know, but it needed to lean far more heavily into the experimental side if it wanted to just go that route.
Yeah.
And not have a full... because the experimental part is actually kind of awesome.
Absolutely.
And up until even to the moment it's ending, I'm like, okay, but just keep going.
Yes,
like this
yes,
almost
yes,
is tying
yes,
together.
yes.
And then it just drops out. And I'm like, do you think it makes sense to go from that to her coming back with the professor later and being like, what are you still doing here? Like, in my head, there has to be, now it could be, I have no idea. It could be there is like, oh yeah, there's a missing scene, but it's like, we're not interested in that. But obviously something has to happen. We just don't know what. And that's part of what sours everything. And we do see that Jake can be a little physical and violent and not thinking straight and things like that. And maybe there was a little bit of a hint of that. Maybe something happened with Maddie just while she was out and about. And she's like, oh no. But I mean, she is literally surprised to see him still
Completely.
there. And the way this movie ends, you're like, there is no chance in hell you left him there. And after this, and can be surprised he's still there. Like, it's not humanly, she's not crazy that way.
Okay,
right?
okay. Let's pause here for a second. So, anyone out there who is familiar, any of our listeners out there who have had one night stands or familiar with one night stand culture or been around friends who've had one night stands, if it's a good one, it's not uncommon that, your paramour wakes up in bed, you need to run out and go someplace, and you say, hey, lock up when you leave or shower and head out. You fully expect that person to be fucking
We don't know if she
gone.
says that, though. Right?
That's my point. It's like, What the fuck does she say? Because one, he's still there. Two, emptying her fucking boxes. Get out of my fucking boxes. Get out of my house right now.
I know that's you. I'm sure she felt the same. Although she did ask him to haul them all up, and maybe he was like, "I'll keep helping." Right? I mean, I can see. True. Right. I can see in his mind how that is just an extension of what
he's
he'd
in
already
love
done for
at this point. His mind. He's
and that too,
whatever.
right.
That, yeah.
Well, and everything we saw in Act 3, he has every right to be, which is the crazy part.
Yeah.
Right? Where you're sort of like, okay,
Yeah.
I mean, you are a weird character and you are too much and too intense, but she played right. If it's something she has no interest in having a second anything with you, she played right along with it a little too well. Like, to the point where I don't buy. This is where I almost think that this is too much from the man's perspective. And I agree with the reviewer in that regard. And it's written by men. And I'm like, they let the woman be a little too much of a pure conundrum. And a pure just question mark, where it's like, how can they say all these things and then show up later? And it's like you're a different person, right? And I'm like, I get it, but this is too extreme. You need to give me reasons to believe this person would be this much of a leap from A to B, especially showing me all that you just showed me in Act 3.
Yeah. That makes sense, but I also think about what got Mati here. She was looking for a fantasy, clearly, right? Just a one-night stand, a dalliance, whatever, a weekend tryst. So she was in the moment for a tryst. At least that's how it seems. And in my mind, her saying "I love you" back and all the things and doing all the things is just a part of the fantasy for that weekend.
I know, kind of. I know, but but no one thinks that you say that and it means nothing to the other person. Like, it's and it's not an agreed upon fantasy, because that's a different thing too, where it's like, we're going to do this together, and then the other person does start to fall. That's a different type of thing, where it's like, that can happen, but you both agreed to do the fantasy as a fantasy. But that's not what's happening here. I understand the movie's trying to be like, they're two individuals that had different expectations and different, but then the way it plays out, I'm just like, but why? She would be more guarded than this. She would be more, you can say I love you, and she can find it sweet. Like, that's the type of person who is like, oh, that's really sweet. Not like, there's a way to handle that moment without saying I love you back. Saying I love you back is just not something you do unless you really mean it.
I didn't write it down. Oh man, I didn't write it down, but she says a line, and it's something to the effect of, I'm acting like the man, or
I came just like a man. I came so fast, just like a man.
Just like a man. And That line made me think, maybe there's some subliminal kind of commentary on
Gender switching.
gender switching
Role
here,
reversal.
which I
Yeah,
could
yeah, yeah.
totally 100% see
Okay,
being a
but
thing.
I mean, again,
Because
it's a little. I mean,
Go ahead.
some people commented on that. There were reviewers that commented on
Yeah.
that, where it's like, but again, because they made the man the dreamboat, where it's like she gets the best sex of her life. It's like she's so lucky that he showed up and gave her this amazing night, kind of a thing, and then she just dumps him next day. So you could call it a role reversal, but there's
You know.
nothing in the movie to explore that really like brings home that's what it's exploring. It's a little,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's not
It's
a
not
bad read
exploring
for
that.
the end.
I don't think it's
Right.
exploring a whole lot, but yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. The movie really needed for it to work as a whole. And I think it does not work as a whole. As much as I enjoyed watching it, I have to give it crap for as an entire work. It leaves the viewer more discombobulated and frustrated and adrift.
Kind of
with
like
what
this
it's even trying
relationship.
Sure, but
Kind of like this relationship.
but what you're adrift on is not, as a filmmaker, you have control of your product.
Mm-hmm.
So to what end?
Mm-hmm.
And how does this function as a piece? Rather than the piece is, where it's like, well, I can tell you what each piece is trying to do as a piece. And it's like, okay, why'd you put them all together
Right.
in this way? Because that's what you have control over. That was your choice. And when it doesn't amount to anything else, and unfortunately, that's where I got to ding Porto, is like, it does not amount to something grander. It just is an amazing series of moments that any given moment you can find a lot to like in and a lot to criticize, but a lot to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And as it goes, you're thinking hard and you're like, I love this. This is great. Where's it going? And then it just... It almost like eats its own tail for no reason whatsoever right at the very end, and just gives you nothing to go home with.
Yes, I agree with that. I personally don't necessarily need it to have a destination, or a direction so much. But I will say one thing: for all of those sort of narrative or cinematic, story flaws, I think this is intentional. I think it mimics the experience you have as an audience member. One, mimics the relationship, the one night stand, the tryst, this kind of intense thing that comes out of nowhere, grabs you. It doesn't make any sense. There's too much intensity. There's vagaries. There's all this stuff. And then it just sort of leaves you, on one hand, really stimulated. But the other hand, there is no sort of offboarding, no conclusion, no sort of, resolution. So I like to think that was intentional on the filmmaker's part, because that would make up for some of the sort of narrative and cinematic and filmic things that these kind of lacks. But overall, loved the experience of watching this film, love the performances, love the choices. Like, Yelchin is clearly was one of those actors, and it was the reason he was so popular and sort of really catching fires, because he made choices. It doesn't
stands out
100%. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter how small the role was. He made choices that stood out. So hats off to him. Sorry to see you go, my guy, but we are drinking in your honor.
Yes, and what are we drinking
and
in his
what
honor?
the hell are we drinking? I want to hear yours first. You go first, goddammit. I have no clue.
So I have sort of two suggestions. I have a wine in specific.
All right.
And then I have just a way to approach this movie that's a little different.
All right.
In terms, so my wine in specific, I really, I did stick to Portuguese. I did stick to Portugal. And I was thinking about how this movie lacks a backstory, and like for most of its characters, and how these two people even meet on an archaeological dig site, all about history. Having nothing to do except about, like, let's dig up the secrets of the past. Let's see where we came from. Let's see what the story of this place is. and here's a movie called Porto, completely uninterested in the place and its history or the characters and their history, just in giving us essentially a vibes-based, moment-to-moment, disjointed, but engrossing for all of that experience, right? And so I thought, okay, what part of Portuguese? Let's do a very traditional style of wine, and let's do something that's got a little bit of, something that would be at home in an archaeological dig site. And I had to go with their giant Vinho de Talha wines, their giant clay vessel wines, where they often, this is a ancient tradition in the south of Portuguese. So this is where I have to break from the movie a little bit. Porto is in the Douro, which is in the north. This is traditional to the Alentejo, which is the far south of Portugal. But it's these giant clay vessels, kind of like a Quervi, which is the Georgian version of that. But the Quervis are always underground. These stand upright up at the top. You usually have to climb a ladder to get to the top of it. And I represent a couple wines here in LA, the Bojador Vinho de Talha. There's a red, there's a tinto, there's a white, a Branco, and both of them they pick the grapes, and they're both field blends of grapes. You crush the grapes, you take the seeds and the stems, and you put them at the bottom of the Talha. By the way, the Talha is Talha, but you always pronounce the H like a Y in Portuguese, so it's Talha, but it's pronounced Talha. And you take the seeds and stems, you put them at the bottom. It's going to soak with the juice and the skins. Then you put up the juice and the skins, you pour it all in there. The seeds and stems are going to give it some extra tannins, some extra woodsy flavors and whatnot. And then it's going to soak in there for about, the Bojador ones are 4 months that they stay in that Talha. And you stir it, you punch down and stir it 3 times a day for 4 months straight. And only after do you bottle the dumb thing afterwards. So the Talha wines tend to be, they're a little challenging for a lot of palates. They're a little bit of a head scratcher, and I think that's a part of this movie too, is I wanted something that doesn't mean they're big and like they hit you hard in any way, but the way in which they're aged, and the Talha is covered, but you have to keep lifting the cover to do the punch downs and the stirs and whatnot. So the wine gets a little oxidized. Just a hint. It's only 4 months, so it's not crazy. It's not like a sherry or something like that where it's years of, of microoxidation. But over 4 months, you're still getting a touch of oxidation. So especially in the white, you get a little sherry note in there that kind of creeps in. And then the Talha itself, the ceramic vessel, adds this kind of rocky minerality to it. And if you do a tinto, a red, I always think of it as having this underlying note of like a briny black olive note that gets kind of inserted in there. And then some people taste it as like almost a metallic-y kind of note. And the whites get more of that little nutty sherry kind of note to the whole thing. And I think the whites, if you want to go easy and breezy, but still be challenged a little bit, but it still doesn't hit you hard, do the Branco, do the white. The white Vinho de Talha, delicious, easy. The red Vinho de Talha, gonna be punchy, and it's gonna hit you a little harder. So if you want something that's actually gonna be a little like challenging, like the puzzle box that is this film, do the red. If you want that more to match that ethereal quality to the whole setting and the way this all plays out, do the Branco, do the white. Bojador, Vinho de Talha, Tinto, and Branco. You can find those all up and down the West Coast. I believe they are also in Washington. So anywhere there in the States. And of course, if you're in Europe, I don't know, but probably they're around in Europe. Bojador is the label. It's one of the winemakers at Racine, which is one of the big wineries in Portugal. And this is his side passion project. It's like all his and not part of the larger Racine winery. So that is my wine, I think, to go. But then the approach that I think could be really interesting. This movie starts with all that disappointment of the relationship falling apart and ends with that Act 3. And the Act 3 is like almost a little over half of the runtime, really. It's like the meat of the movie. And it's all the happy. It's that one day and it's all happy. Nothing out of place. It is just that fall in love at first sight romance. So it's so happy. So I think for the first 30 to 40-ish minutes, find a wine that you really like. Doesn't matter what wine. Find a wine you really like and you're in the mood to drink. Now, what is the ideal way to drink that wine? If it's like a white and it's going to be chilled, great. Pour 1 glass room temperature.
Okay.
If it's a red, you pour 1 glass bone chilling cold.
Okay.
Or super hot, like make it get like, because it's still supposed to be like cellar temperature ideally for a red. So let it be, if like the room temperature is like 80, let it get up there. Let it be a little like a little sickeningly whatever.
All right.
For the first glass, you drink the bad version of of a nice wine, of something that makes you happy, but drink it in a way that's gonna be hard. And that's going to be that is the entire energy and vibe of the first third. And for that last 2/3, once you pour that glass, now put the wine in the fridge, let it get properly chilled. Then you're going to do this all together. Now pour that chilled glass or 2, or however many you have for the second 2/3. And for the happy romantic side, you drink that ideal version. But I think an unideal version of a wine that makes you happy, let it make you sad for 1 glass, and then let it make you happy again.
I like that. That's fun, actually. Yeah. All right. A little curated evening.
Yeah.
So I like this film a lot.
I weirdly do too.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
for all my wanting to throttle it, I'm
Yeah.
like, God, I liked watching it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like that with people too. There are people on paper I should absolutely abhor, just hate. And but
I mean, I still hate its storytelling choices, but
yes.
I do like watching it.
Yeah.
So there is like it is love and hate. It's like I like a totally different part and I hate another totally different part. Yeah.
And to me, sometimes those are the most stimulating. They almost always are the most stimulating experiences, films, books, or whatever it is. It's that there's some consternation, there's some agitation, there's some stuff. You gotta fucking reckon with it, I suppose. So as I said earlier, I was thinking maybe I wanted something that was just for Act 1. I needed something that was really poppy and peppy and fun and bright, and maybe a white. And I was thinking, maybe maybe a sparkling of some sort. But then Act 2 came around, and I was like, "Oh, I need to ground myself in something here." Because
you didn't do what I thought you were going to do. Okay.
So I need to ground myself in something here.
I thought you were going to do a Porto Tonico.
I absolutely was.
Nice.
Absolutely
okay.
was.
And by the way, guys, that is half white dry port and half tonic water.
Yeah.
And fuck, it's so good.
You just drink them.
So good.
You just fucking drink them. But I actually was. But then, as this film we got deeper and deeper into this film, it was like, I don't know, there is so much sort of darkness here, and just there's also some sweetness there because of what she was looking for and what he was looking for, at least as far as we know.
There's tons of sweetness here.
Yeah, at least as far as we know, I mean, of course, there's other darkness and confusing emotions in there, of course. I wanted something fortified, but also sweet, right? I wanted something that had a core to it, something that was sort of grounded and maybe woodsy or sort of earthy somehow. And I decided to go with, I think you see it here, the Alambre Moscatel de Setúbal 2019, which is a fortified dessert wine from the Setúbal Peninsula in Portugal, which is, I think, included in Lisbon. It is recognized in the DOC since 1907, so it has been around for a while. It is an amber-colored Moscatel. The grape is the Moscatel de Setúbal, and the appellation is the same. The grape, I think the parentage is it the Alexandrian?
Muscat of Alexandria.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is...
And this is the musket of Setubal. So, hey.
Yeah, right.
You're like,
right.
what's Alexandria? Fuck
Right.
that.
I know, screw that. It is delicious. I mean, you can find these kind of, I don't want to say everywhere, but it's very popular, even here. They're very popular to find the muscatels. And this brand or maker is also renowned. It's just kind of perfect. It's got like this really intense orange base, but it's not. Sometimes those orange liqueurs are things that are sort of fortified with that orange kind of essence. They can get almost not medicinal, sort of house cleaner-ish, a little scrapey, a little scrappy, a little too much. It's got that. It's got some almond in it. It's got. It's a little perfect. It's a little perfect.
Okay.
It also is strong enough to make you forget the things you dislike about this film if you have more than one glass.
Yeah. Could be helpful. You heard it here first, folks. You might need to get a little tipsy, like proper, to truly walk away thinking this is you love this movie. But yeah, I mean, I watched it twice. Like I went back, I dove back in. I was like, no, I need to try this again. Because I liked it so much that I wanted the story to work better.
And I will say the other thing, and then that the with background in theater and that whole dramaturgical thing, you're always. Even when it's not given, you're always sort of looking or aware of backstory and all this stuff, right? And you can tell a really good actor because they make acute, strong choices that give you some glimpse into backstory or create it for you. And I think this film is going to be in the future studied a lot in film schools, and I do.
Whoa.
I actually do.
Oh my God! The director just creamed himself. I mean,
really,
you have no idea.
I really do because of what we're saying. Because of what we're saying, it's like there's clearly a list of things that annoy the shit. You see that? By the way, that is one stack of three stacks of scripts I printed up of original scripts, all individual. Anyway, it just is annoying in some very clear ways, but also perfect in some very clear ways. And that space in between invites conversation, and I love it. And that's all I got to say. Go watch this film.
All right.
Hate it, love it, drink some wine, come back and tell us about it.
I agree. Yeah. Do it. And drink some bad wine, drink some good wine, drink some good wine in a bad way, and then drink it in a good way. Take all the advice, see what you'd like to do. Also the Vinho de Talhas, or the Moscatel de Setubal. Go see if you can find that. And that is from Fonseca, which is one of the big, they also do some port and possibly sherry as well. I actually don't know about that.
I think so. I've got at least I have a Fonseca port for sure, and maybe a sherry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. All right. Well, folks, before we go, as always, a little housekeeping. Do you love this podcast? Well, do you love wine and movie pairings? Well, then make sure to follow us and subscribe to this pod. Also, leave us a rating and review because all of these things make it easier for others to find out about us. No one's looking for a wine and movie podcast. No one knows such a thing exists. But if you're listening to this, you probably have to admit it's pretty wappity-bappity cool. Yeah? So, everyone who wants to know about us should get to know about us. So please, folks, follow, rate, and if you have a minute, review, follow and rate. That's cool. That's good enough. Whatever platform you're on, just give it that 5 stars and you're off. No worries about anything else. But if you can also leave a review, we would love to see that. Mm-hmm. And in addition, go follow us on our Substack. Just go to vintertainmentstudios.com, where we'll keep you all up to date on all our upcoming, get this, live in-person wine and movie events. Okay, that is something we just this weekend got the big new screen installed at this local wine shop where we are installing a micro cinema. We got a new projector projector. We got a ceiling mount for it. We got a new screen. We're getting some blackout stuff. They have the skylight in that room. We got to get a blackout panel for the skylight that we can pull to and from. So we're getting that into the best screening room possible. So we have a lot of upcoming. If you're in the LA area, we're going to have nights of short films from local creators, nights of feature films. We have work in progress films where people can come show a rough cut and get feedback. That will probably be an invite only. So you better come get to know us and maybe get an invite to some of those work in progress screenings that we're going to do. And all of these paired with wine from the wine shop. This is going to be a micro cinema within a wine shop, baby, that is also a tasting room so they can pour wine by the glass. You can do a flight. So we will keep you up to date on all of those things coming very, very soon. Online events as well as bonus wine and entertainment pairings that we sometimes write about on the Substack, collabs with other writers, filmmakers, and wine peeps. And if you ask nicely, we'll even help you. Let's say you don't live in the LA area and you can't come to ours. So we will even help you with your own wine and movie pairings. Just ask. We love doing this. We're super okay with doing it more. Let us know what you want to watch. Let us know the wine you have on hand, and we'll help you maybe pair it with something that's going to work like a proper wine and movie pairing. And finally, many thanks to our sponsor, Curated Wine Shop. That is actually the wine shop where the micro cinema is. So let me tell you, not only are they going to be doing that for us, but no idea where to begin finding a wine and movie. I'm sorry, finding a wine and movie.
Well, technically, yeah.
No idea where to begin finding a wine that pairs with your movie. That's okay. Almost literally no one does, but Curated is here to help. They accept every Vintertainment-inspired challenge and will curate the selection to match your palate. Just tell them what you're trying to pair with your budget, your preferences, and they will show you the way. Curated is a boutique wine shop on La Brea Avenue, Mid-City, Los Angeles, founded and operated by peeps currently and previously part of the entertainment ecosystem. We're talking Johnny, Kelly, Allison, and Mia. They are all fantastic. Go meet them. They carry an ever-changing, wide-ranging selection of small lot artisanal wines, from the known and comforting to the completely unique. We're talking reds, whites, rosés, oranges, sparklings, dry wines, sweet wines, everything in between. Go check them out if you're in the LA area. And you can also find them online at curated-wines.com. They do ship. So if you want to go and support the people who are supporting us, go check them out, curated-wines.com. For them, and Vintertainmentstudios.com for us Vintertainment bros. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back in 1 week with another wine and entertainment pairing for your Vintertainment. Ciao for now.
Later, guys.
It as mutually fulfilling intersection of different. Oh, I inhaled wrong there. Intersection of different. No, let's just start over. And actually, no, since we're pausing.
The gremlin got him. The podcast gremlin got him.
I inhaled and like a little bit of spit just went right down the throat, and I was like, "Whoa,
Nice."